pretty sure everybody knows who our guest is.
It's certainly one of the stars of our town and the South Shore.
We're talking about
and more.
We're talking international fame and success.
Thanks, Mark.
We are talking about. So we are talking to and with.
Wait, let me do it.
Dan Hassett of Levitate.
Woo!
Tonight. Welcome, Dan.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much for the kind words and having me on.
That's great.
Hey, so Dr. Joe, before we get into deep diving with Dan.
That's no pun intended, right?
Yeah.
Well, sort of.
Well,
surfing. Go on.
Diving. Okay.
No, that's all right.
That would be scuba diving, but
okay.
it's water.
Sorry.
So anyway.
Scuba dive as well.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So
I'm an amateur scuba diver.
Okay.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you're pretty good at it.
So, yeah. Well, I'm not, but I'm actually terrible at it. But I like to free dive without the tank.
Can you be like really good at scuba diving versus not?
Being not good means you hit the freaking compressor and you sink to the bottom.
Got it.
That's what I do.
And then you come up and you get the bends.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I stay in the shallows.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before we get into that.
Yeah. So before we get into that, there was a lot of engagement around the topic that we opened with last week with the bubble wrapping of the children. Right. And having the overprotective helicopter syndrome of our generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the conversation, people are, it's obviously ignites a lot of conversation, but I actually had the opportunity to talk to Dan a little bit about it this week and, and what his thoughts were. And, what he's doing at Levitate, one of the many avenues that Levitate has is it actually gives those kids the opportunity for free play. So he's got a concept for surfing and skateboarding, which, by and large, there's no travel all-star teams for, as far as I know, and there's no real organization. It's more, let's get out there and see nature. Let's get out there and be part of, what is available for us without structure and organization and carpooling.
Well, it's not just the structure and organization, but it's also that competition and having to be the best and somehow, having to compete against a fellow kid, and prove that you're better than somebody else as opposed to just being, part of a group.
Just going out and digging though, so more of the free play is where I'm kind of going with this as opposed to the all-star A team, because there are competitions with surfing, right? I mean, if you become an elite,
right?
Yeah.
There is, but I think on the ground culture, it's not like that.
Right.
It's like surfing actually still is like you think it was in the 60s, where you do it because you like the lifestyle, like being in nature. And I think the kids camps we do, for example, I was talking about with Mark, it's like I grew up at a time, the last generation that didn't have cell phones in high school. So we had that old-fashioned upbringing where you were outside all day. And in my unique position, my parents weren't pushing me to, excel at sports in particular. They definitely encouraged me to do whatever it was I wanted to do, but being like an elite competitor was not part of the plan. I am actually competitive, but I think that's a natural thing. But I think in the camps that we do these days, the kids camps and in everything we do, it's more just about being a part of something that matters and being outdoors and learning. And you might find something you love. You might do our surf camp and end up loving paddleboarding. Mm-hmm. Or just you might enjoy hanging out in tide pools or skimboarding, but you're picking up something new that is definitely non-competitive, but means a lot to you.
Right. And that you might not otherwise see because from 8 to, from dawn to dusk, you have a schedule of events of where you need to be. And there's not that ability to go out and be adventurous.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a concept that I didn't realize how much it changed in the last 10 or 15 years. I do now that I have kids myself.
How structured kids are becoming.
Right.
This is what you do. This is where you're meant to be. And I think the structure, in some ways, is a way for parents to feel more comfortable because at least they know where their kids are during that time, as opposed to the uncertainty. Where's my kid? Which my parents had to tolerate. I mean, we went outside.
Streetlights come on, come home. Other than that,
that was right.
You're fine. It. And then it was CNN.
And then
so I blame it on CNN, Dan. So last week our conversation went around not CNN as a network itself, left or right. They were the first ones that started programming 24/7 news and freaking people out.
But news, I think that's part of it. But the news media, the whole idea is if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
I mean, that's unfortunate. But the part that's fascinating is why do human beings have such a fascination for that? And that has to do, I think, with survival. It's really important to know if something's dangerous so we don't run up against it. And if we do run against it, we know what to do with it.
Right.
The thing is, it's become prevalent. It's everywhere.
And now everybody is fearful.
And now everyone is fearful. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and you strive to keep your kids safe first, even before yourself. So I think that's, like you said, when it's very, very structured, parents probably feel great about that because they know what's going on and their kids are somewhere safe and known. And it's a known situation. Whereas the free play thing and just saying, like back, like when I was a kid, it was just be home at dark or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you could get into.
Yeah.
But I think it was like a rewarding upbringing to be brought up like that.
Well, it's the independence, right? So you're
risk,
learning. Yeah, there's a lot of risk. There's learning the independence that they're not learning now, right? They're not learning deductive reasoning. They're not learning problem solving. They're not learning these things because they're being told where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and they don't have that ability to the freedom of thought, really. The freedom of creativity.
Yeah. I think they're being asked to solve problems within a certain rubric. So, here's where you are structured. Now solve the problem within this, as opposed to being able to think outside of the box and be creative.
Right. So
for some of them, I mean, we had Little League back in my day. I mean, I wasn't particularly good at it, but great example. But I would ride my bike to practice. Yeah.
Yep. My parents weren't going to the practices.
Right.
Maybe they were at the games, but a lot of times we're being dropped off for the games. There's an over involvement, and we touched on it last week because of that article in the Wall Street Journal. And I wanted to bring it to your attention because of the deduction that they found, which was that it's causing more anxiety in young adolescents and adults because of the overbearing upbringing. Right? So they're afraid to kind of step out.
Yeah. And I think it's true. I think that there is this increased anxiety. The anxiety is always a fear of failure, not just, a fear of being hurt by somebody else. I wrote about this in The Fear Reflex, which is one of the books.
Which is available on Amazon.com. And Audible, right? No, Audible is only
Outsmarting Anger.
Outsmarting Anger, right?
But I want to go back to this Little League thing because I coached Little League for one of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
They were 6-year-olds. And did I tell you the story?
No.
Did I tell this on the air before?
That's T-ball, but we don't need to get into semantics.
Maybe it's a little older. No, because we actually had people pitching. We had the kids pitching.
Okay.
Right? And I didn't know that there was a draft. Oh. So I came in, as I was a coach, came in at the end, didn't know there was a draft.
You were the sucker.
Exactly. I was new to town, came in, and I had all these kids, who were wonderful kids, but certainly were not the kids that had been picked by these other coaches. So the first game, we just got decimated, totally wiped out.
Yeah.
But I realized that, what was really happening was the kids were pitching. So most of them were walking.
Yeah.
And then on occasion, somebody would actually hit the ball.
Yeah.
Right. And they would hit the ball very often, mostly in the infield, sometimes in the outfield. So I taught my kids one play. And I said, okay, when the bases are loaded, and I explained what the bases loaded meant, if the ball gets hit to you, do not throw it. Run as fast as you can to home. This is home. And there's a guy on third base. That's third base. You beat the guy on third. You run as fast as you can here, and you step on that before that guy does.
Yeah. Did it work?
We never lost another game.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm serious because...
With that theory?
Because...
Incredible fielders, it sounds.
They couldn't...
They must be fast.
They were really fast.
Yeah.
And the other coaches were furious. He said, you have to teach them to throw. I said, no, we just, you want to play the game to win, we're going to win. Then, right? Then they said, okay, now it's all-star time.
Yeah.
and you have to pick 2 of your kids to be all-stars. Now, we had a team by this time. Everybody was equal. Nobody was like better than anybody else. We always did our huddle.
Good chemistry,
right?
yeah.
Great chemistry. So they said, you have to pick 2 kids. And I said to them, I'm not doing that. They said, what do you mean? I said, we have a whole season left to play. You're going to tell me that I've got to take 2 of my kids and say, you 2 are all-stars and the rest of you aren't?
Yeah.
That's not happening. So this is my suggestion as a child psychiatrist.
Sure.
This is what I suggest. I suggest that you have one all-star game with every single kid in this league, and you mix up all the teams.
Yeah.
So everybody plays and everybody wins. Everybody gets a trophy. And at the end of it.
What age group again?
These are like 7 years old, right?
Okay.
And so that's what they did. And the kids had a great time because not only were they, not singled out, but now they were teammates with other teams.
Right.
And learning what to do and playing with each other and realizing that it wasn't the competition as much as just being out there having fun and playing the game.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that they were winning necessarily, but that they were learning what it was to be part of a team. And for me, that was more important.
Yeah.
So, I only stayed in that particular town for 2 or 3 years.
Oh,
they
that wasn't your current town.
No, not the current town. This was different. And they continued to do that after I left. And when I left, they gave me a little plaque, a little thank you,
Did they name a field after you?
No, but they could have, and they
may have.
Now
they still can.
Now the argument is, okay, well, Dr. Trent, aren't you now doing what is the worst thing, which is that everyone suddenly has to be a winner?
Because that's part of the overall problem.
Right, and that's the concern. But no, because these kids lost badly. They knew what it was to lose. They learned one thing so they could win. Didn't mean that they were any better than anybody else, but they learned something so that they could win.
I don't understand this. So it's the problem is that it's too competitive, but the problem is that also everyone's a winner.
No,
I get both.
So he kind of went off the rails a little bit there on me, and I wasn't going there. I'm more concerned about the free play concept.
Right.
Get home from school, get on your bike, ride over to your buddies, ring the doorbell.
Right.
Doesn't happen anymore.
Right. I agree.
And that I have a problem with. I also have a problem with everybody participates and gets an award, but that might have worked at that age. I don't have a problem with it at certain ages. At a certain age, you got to kind of learn, that there are winners and there are losers.
Well, when you go out,
there are winners and then there are runners up or second places.
Well, this was another thing.
The word loser is a little rough.
My one son was doing skiing, and after many competitions, he finally said to his mom, because he kept getting these ribbons, and he said to his mom, "What does participant mean?" And she said, "It means you tried your best, honey."
Stretch the canvas, rush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show? Van Gogh, go, 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 go. Van Gogh, go, 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 go.